Well, first I'd like to welcome everyone for being here. For those of you who I have not met yet, my name is Dr. Albanese, and I thank you for being here. Tonight we are going to talk about creating a healthy diet, optimizing your health with a diet that can not only impact your health but provide energy. And I'll explain more about what that actually means and why that's important for us to be aware of as we go along. I was listening to the radio a week or two ago, and the DJ mentioned New Year's resolutions, and people are starting New Year's resolutions, and a lot of that revolves around creating a healthy diet, losing weight, exercising, things like that. And I thought it was interesting because he was talking about maybe it was the top 5 most popular diets. And he would mention the diet and said, this diet is really known for helping people with diabetes. This one is known for helping people with, heart problems or whatever the case may be. And I thought it was interesting because really a healthy diet helps with all of that. But it is confusing. When people hear that, they say, well, maybe I should do that diet or this diet. And the reality is there is no special diet for any one individual. I've said this before, we have not changed in terms of what our genetic code is since we were hunter-gatherers. We've been the same. What has changed is our lifestyle. Our lifestyle is so incongruent to how we're designed and what our body requires that it causes dis-ease within the body. Conditions, chronic conditions, disease, sickness, whatever you want to call it. But because we live so incongruently, we have really confused things a lot. Eating, when I say diet, it's not going on a diet, but what we eat is really not supposed to be difficult. It's not supposed to be, something that's complex. If you go back before we had grocery stores and places like that, nobody had cancers and heart disease and Alzheimer's and Parkinson's like they do now. Some of those conditions are just the last 20 years. And a lot of them, until we started exporting food and other countries accepted our food, didn't exist around the world. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to start by getting a little scientific-like, talking a little bit about some microbiology and biochemistry, because I can explain this is what a healthy diet looks like. But if you don't understand why that is, it doesn't have as much weight attached to it. So I want to explain a little bit about what a healthy diet looks like, and some of that will be similar to some of the things we've talked about in the past, but I want to start out by explaining why that is and the benefits of eating certain ways. So we're going to take a little journey into cellular biology, and we're going to make it very simple, but it's a very complex topic, but we're going to make it very simple so that you understand what and how this impacts you. Y'all can move the chairs around if you want. So let's talk first about what food is. Food is anything that provides nutrition, nutrients, vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, anything that provides your body with the building blocks to grow, to provide energy, to sustain life. That's what food is designed for. Now, we use food in a lot of ways. You watch TV for an hour, all of a sudden you start getting bored, you grab the chips. You go on a long car ride, you pack snacks, right? Let's meet at Starbucks and we'll have a muffin and have a coffee. And that's all good. But in reality, food is designed for one purpose. We come out of our cave and we say, okay, I'm going to be hunting and gathering all day. What do I need to do to prepare myself to last all day? Because I don't eat again until I come back to my cave. Food is designed to be energy, to keep us alive. It wasn't a novelty back then. It was something that we needed. It was an essential, and it is today, but food is readily available. We go in our refrigerators, our cabinets, and there's plentiful amounts of food. You know, you check out and you grab a bag or a box or a candy bar, and that's what you eat on the way home, right? So food serves a lot of purposes, but the main purpose is sustain life, give us energy, provide the building blocks for growth and development. So when we look at why we need food in terms of energy, let's look at this. Now, our body requires a certain amount of energy to function. This is an example of the distribution of that energy. BMR. Now, I'm going to talk in very specific terms. I'm not talking about how much you eat. 70% goes to BMR. What your body requires, 70% of that is for your basal metabolic rate. What does this mean? Basal metabolic rate is you lying in bed, not moving, but your heart beats, your lungs are breathing, your brain is functioning, there are chemical reactions taking place. There are things that are happening inside. That's your basal metabolic rate. The calories that are required to keep you alive. That's 70% of the calories we take in. 15% of the calories that your body requires is for non-exercise activity. You get out of bed, you walk down the hall, you make breakfast, you clean the house, do the trash, your daily activities. That is 15% of the calories your body requires goes towards that. Then you have your eating, digestion, absorption of food. About 10% of the calories your body requires goes towards that. And then about 5% goes towards exercise. You go play pickleball, you go to the gym, you walk, play tennis, whatever it is. That's about 5% of your calorie requirements. So this is based on what your body requires. Everybody's body requires a different amount of calories. It's based on age, height, activity level. What I do every day is somewhat active. Other people have more active jobs. Other people are more sedentary. So it depends on all of that. That is your TDEE, your total daily energy expenditure. So let's take a look at this so it becomes a little more real. Out of the 70%, your liver and your spleen require 27% of that. Your brain, 19%. Skeletal muscles, 18%. Kidneys, 10%. Heart, 7%. And the rest of the organs and muscles, about 19%. Now, if I get in a car and I want to go from point A to point B, I get in the car and I start driving. Now, I don't have a fuel gauge, so I don't know how much gas is in the car. I don't know how much gas is required for the trip. In other words, how much do I have to fill in before I go? I don't know that. So when I get in the car and start driving, am I going to have enough gas that takes me to point B? Is my car going to kind of conk out halfway through? I have no idea. And that's how most people look at their diet. I ate quick. I ate something real quick before I left for work. And I didn't have a lot of time at lunch, so I ate a little something at my desk. And I got home and, I was by myself, cooked a little something, and that was it. That's how most people's diets look. So if you're eating like that, and you're going from point A, when you're born, to point B, which we all should be somewhere around 130 years old. That's how much we're designed. That's how our body's designed to live, that old, right? So we go from point A to point B. And you don't have a fuel indicator. How much fuel are you giving your heart, spleen, liver, brain? What if your heart only gets 5% of what it requires? Or your liver and your spleen get 22%? Are they going to have the energy to take you from point A to 130 years old? Or will that organ not be able to function for a long time? and conk out. We look at our body and we say, okay, my wife says I'm a Lamborghini. I don't know what y'all are. She says I'm a Lamborghini. So I want to put high test fuel in my engine. If I put regular leaded, non-leaded, just regular gas like we had in the olden days, in my tank, my car is going to start to ping and knock and ding. It's not going to run real well, and it's certainly not going to run real long. So it's not only how much we eat, it's the quality of food we eat. Because that food is basically fuel. So if you consider food fuel, what type of fuel, what quality fuel are you providing your engine with? Enough to give all these organs and muscles enough to go all the way to point B? Now, most people aren't going to count calories for the rest of their life. But that is really the only way to figure out, where am I? I recommend that everyone does this about a week or two, a few times a year, just as a spot check. How much am I really getting? Am I providing my body with what it needs based on what my lifestyle is? Maybe that changes from the winter to the summer. Maybe you play pickleball in the summer. Maybe you're more active in the summer. Do you change your diet? Like right now, I start my training for, my race is starting in April. So I need to relook at my diet. As I'm doing more, I need to fuel my body more. So I look at my calories every day. Because for me, I'm real specific with how much I'm expending. Yeah, I ran Sunday, I ran a bunch of miles, and I burned about 1,100 calories. So if I'm not adding that to what my body already needs just to survive, now I start using muscle. I start losing weight. That's not good, right? Because that's not my goal. And eventually I'll fatigue and not function as well. So we have a lot of different ways to count calories. But if you think about it, all these organs have cells. Your heart has 10 billion cells. 40% of what's in a cell makes energy. We're going to talk about it in a minute. But those 10 billion cells, what you're really doing with food is fueling every one of those cells. And cumulatively, that's what the heart is. Liver, 500 billion cells. Every one of those cells needs, between the liver and the spleen, 27% calories to function. That's billions of cells. That's a lot. So you have to fuel your body because all of these cells need a little bit of fuel, and cumulatively they run that organ. Now, it's pretty easy to count calories. I know it sounds like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of work. These are a couple of apps that are free. They're in your packet. MyFitnessPal and Chronometer. They're free apps. This is how easy it is. Take a picture of the barcode and it already calculates one serving, and you hit enter. For me, I have a green drink I have every morning. So I put all the ingredients of my green drink into MyFitnessPal, and then I create a meal. I call it green drink. So in the morning, for breakfast, green drink. And it's done. It's not hard, but it's good to do just to get an idea. Am I actually fueling my body the way, giving it what it needs? Because unless you calculate that, you really don't know. And you don't have to do this ongoing for the rest of your life, but it's good to have a spot check and just see, where am I? So these are good recommendations. Now, this is the formula that's used in a lot of these apps. And you can also Google this online, Harris Benedict Calorie Counter, if you don't want to get an app. And basically it calculates what your BMR is, what your TDEE is. Basically it calculates that and figures it out for you. But the apps make it very simple. So let's take a look at how food becomes energy. I use this picture because I thought it was awesome. Oh. Eyes are bigger than my stomach. Oh. The epitome of that. So we think of food as this chunk of stuff, but it's really all these little molecules and atoms all tightly put together. So when you break a watermelon down, there's fiber, carbohydrates, there's different things. We're just gonna, for our purpose today, talk in terms of carbohydrates as fuel. That's our primary fuel source. This is what an atom of glucose looks like. So we break that watermelon down primarily in the small intestine into glucose. It permeates through the small intestine, goes to the blood. It meets up with a chaperone that carries it through the blood and opens the door in the cell, puts it in the cell. That's insulin. Okay? That's how glucose goes to the cell. So glucose enters a cell. This is what a cell looks like. It's like a little lake with an island. The light blue stuff is called the cytoplasm. It's like a little gel. These little things are called mitochondria. They're called organelles. The mitochondria are real important. Glucose enters the cell and it becomes something called pyruvate. Then it enters the mitochondria. Within the cell, it gets into this little guy and it's changed into ATP. Now, this whole thing, basically all you have to remember is glucose becomes ATP. That's your energy source. ATP is the energy currency of a cell. ATP is your fuel. ATP is in every cell, for every part of your body, for everything that happens. Muscle contraction, nerve stimulus, everything that happens in your body requires fuel. And that fuel is ATP. And that fuel comes from glucose. Glucose comes from the food you eat. So if you're not having enough food, you're not producing enough glucose to produce enough fuel to produce enough ATP. This is a really important concept. Mitochondria. Mitochondria are the powerhouses of your cell. That's where ATP, glucose, is converted to ATP. That's where your energy comes from. This is the power plant. This is really important. So, within the 10 billion cells of your heart, 40% of that cell of your heart are mitochondria. 40% of that cell produces energy. Your heart cannot stop. Some of the organs take a little time out. You know, take a deep breath, breathe slow. Your lungs get a little break. When you're done eating, your stomach gets a little break. Your heart does not. 40% of that cell requires food, glucose specifically, to function. That's how important our diet is. The whole purpose of this is to really demonstrate to you what the food is doing, where it goes, and how it actually keeps you alive. That's how important your diet is. This is all called metabolism. Most people think metabolism is, oh, you have a fast metabolism, you lose weight easy. You have a slow metabolism, it's harder to lose weight. That's not metabolism. That's a little bit of what metabolism is. Metabolism is how efficiently your body turns food into fuel. That's what your metabolism is. If you're working very efficiently, if you're metabolically fit, metabolically healthy, that conversion happens very efficiently and effectively. But if you're not metabolically healthy, that food doesn't become fuel efficiently. That fuel doesn't fuel the cells that make up your heart, your liver, your spleen, your heart, your brain. That's how important your fuel is. Why is this important to understand? About 88% of the population in the United States is not metabolically healthy, has metabolic syndrome or dysfunction, metabolic disease. Just about every chronic disease, the main cause is metabolic dysfunction or a lack of metabolic health. You look at the top causes of death, you take out accidents, every one of these at its root is a metabolic dysfunction side effect. Because if your cells of your heart are not getting 19% or 8% of the calories that you take in, how well is it going to function? If you're not giving it high-test premium gasoline, how long is it going to work well? Eventually, it starts to break down. And you'll see how the food actually plays a role in that, the quality of food. So this is very important to understand because your metabolic health is dependent on your lifestyle. These are called metabolic biomarkers. Your blood sugar levels, your blood glucose levels, triglyceride levels, HDL, cholesterol levels, waist circumference, and the amount of medication you take. These are all the factors that determine, are you metabolically healthy or not? For women, 35-inch waist or larger, men, 40-inch waist or larger. Fasting blood glucose, over 100. HDL levels, less than 40. Triglyceride levels, above 150. Blood pressure, 135/85 or above. This, if you have 3 of 5 of these checked off, that's metabolic dysfunction. And you take 1 or more prescription medication. These are the markers you should be looking at when you get your blood work done. These are the markers you should look at to see, where am I cellular health? Where is my cellular health? Because this is what makes up you. You're made of cells. We're not even solid. We're made up of all these little cells. That's how they function through lifestyle. And this is how you grade them. How well are they working? How does metabolic dysfunction manifest? Weight gain or obesity, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease, chronic liver disease, kidney disease, cancer, diabetes, depression, anxiety, lack of exercise endurance, infertility, balding, erectile dysfunction, acne, chronic pain. These are how that manifests. The problem is we start treating these as if they're problems in and of themselves. We don't look at lifestyle and what can influence lifestyle. And that's when we start running into problems. So how do you influence your metabolic health? How do you improve your metabolic health? Your lifestyle. How, when, and what you eat, getting enough sleep, managing stress or decreasing stress, exercise, decreasing toxins that are placed in your body, things that are out there that we breathe in, things that we drink or eat, right? Preservatives, additives, GMO toxins, things like that. All of those things can influence your metabolic health. So in other words, you know what influences your metabolic health? You. You do with the decisions you make and the choices you make. Your lifestyle. It's not complicated. It's very easy. What I want to do now is talk about how to create a healthy diet. What that looks like. When to eat, how to eat, what to eat. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about metabolic health. So let's talk about when to eat. We've touched on this before, but this is a little different context. Our body is designed as a hunter-gatherer. So at hunter-gatherer times, we didn't have smartwatches and smartphones with alarms that told us to get up. We woke up when the sun came up because that's when it was safe to go outside and hunt and gather and do our hunting, gathering things, right? So, you know, when you're lying in bed, your eyes are closed, you feel the sun, don't you? You open your eyes, it stimulates a reaction. Your retina sends a signal to your brain to says, hey, we're not sleeping anymore. Melatonin kind of brings us down, relaxes us. We don't need that now because it's daytime. Suppress melatonin secretion, and let's, in our context today, we're going to talk about the digestive function reactions that take place when this happens. So when melatonin is inhibited, then we have an increased sensitivity to gastric enzymes, to insulin, to leptin and ghrelin. We'll explain what all these are. our transit time within our GI tract, peristalsis, increases because that's when we're going to eat. That's why when you eat at night, you eat a big meal late at night, all of these functions are suppressed. They decrease. That's why we feel bloated, lethargic, tired. We don't sleep well because that's when we're not supposed to eat. That's why your biggest meal should be weighted earlier in the day. Now this reaction, when the sun is going down and it gets darker, reverses. The brain says, let's stimulate melatonin. Let's decrease all of these. Now you're getting ready for night. So when you should eat is earlier in the day, earlier afternoon, have smaller meals in the evening. That's how our body's designed. Because when we were hunter-gatherers, there was nothing to do at night. You had a cave. That was it, right? When they progressed, they had light. But that's how we're designed to live. Now, within that time, about 7 in the morning to 7 at night is about when these reactions, this cycle takes place. It's a continuum, so it doesn't start and stop. It's a continual cycle. But that's when your body's designed to kind of wake up and start working on taking in, digesting, and absorbing food until about 7 in the evening. If you eat 2 meals a day, 1 meal at 7 in the morning, 1 meal at 7 at night, they're identical meals, your insulin levels will be higher at night than they are in the morning because you're less sensitive to insulin. There's going to be more glucose wandering around the blood because there aren't as many chaperones then. That's why you want to eat those meals earlier in the day. You're going to have a big bowl of fruit and things like that, have it earlier in the day, early in the afternoon, but not your last meal at night. Now, within that window of eating time, there's also ways to enhance that in terms of how often we eat. We're designed to eat a meal when you leave your cave, then you're going out to the forest, and you're not coming back until later. So during that time, we're not eating. We weren't snacking and grazing through the day. You want to eat food, digest, absorb it, and then take a break. Take a time out. And then eat another meal, whether it's 1 meal a day, 2 meals a day, 3 meals a day. You want to give your body time in between when you eat. There are many things that you benefit from when you do that. One of the biggest things is something called autophagy. By definition, auto is self, phagy is eat, so eating thyself. What does this actually mean? Well, when your digestive tract doesn't have anything to do, your brain says, hey, instead of sitting around, why don't you get busy? Why don't you clean the house? Why don't you walk around and find damaged cells and tissues? Try to refurbish them. If you can't refurbish them, let's eat them and get rid of them. This is how damaged cells and tissues don't accumulate in your body. This is your body's way of cleaning itself. So if you are accumulating more damaged cells and tissues in your body, how efficiently is your body? Now, this isn't just in your body. These are the 500 billion cells in your heart. These are the 5 trillion cells on your skin. They're accumulating in those organs. So if you're accumulating more damaged cells and tissues in those organs, how well are they going to work? Right? You know, a house, if your one room in the house is just packed with stuff, you don't want to go in there. You can't walk around real well. It's clogged up with stuff. You want to clean it out. Get rid of stuff so you can go in and utilize the room. Body works the same way. That's when your body has the chance to clean out the tank. Now, during this process, when we take glucose and we're making ATP, there are byproducts of that. Some of that is water, carbon dioxide. There's also something that is a byproduct. It's called free radicals. Free radicals are not good cells. So let me explain a little bit about what a free radical is. Say I go to a party. Now I'm going to take my wife, right? We're very secure in our relationship. We're good. We're stable. There's 2 of us. So that's an even number. So your cell has an even number of electrons on the outer ring. That's stable. Now my wife says, hey, can we bring a friend? Yeah, sure, that's fine. Right? She's got to sit in the back, but that's fine. Right? So we go to the party. We show up. Now, at the party, there's somebody who shows up without a date. Okay? We're going to call this person Chris. Now, I just so happened to pick that name. I didn't even mean to do this. I apologize. We can call him Ronnie, but Ronnie brought a date, so we're just going to say Chris. So, Chris shows up. He's by himself. He's an odd number, 1. He has an odd number of electrons on his outer ring. Nobody wants to be odd. So what is he going to do when he gets to the party? It's before he was married, in case anybody. He's looking around, he says, hey, I think I'm going to go talk to that girl. But she's with a date. Doesn't matter. He's going to go talk to her. And she's going to come over and start mingling with him. Now, her date is all alone. Now, her date is unstable too. So that person is going to go talk to someone else's date, take her. Now he's unstable. And that process continues. That's called a free radical. That's what free radicals do. That's how cancer cells proliferate. That's how that happens. Now, what am I going to do? I look at my wife and say, well, not only am I a superhero, I'm an antioxidant. I'm going to introduce your friend to Chris so he doesn't go steal that date from that guy. Then Chris will be even. He'll be more stable. Antioxidants neutralize free radicals. So if you have more antioxidants, they're going to be on the job. They're going to take care of those free radicals. But if you have more free radicals than you do antioxidants, now you have the breakdown of heart, liver, spleen, brain. Free radicals, they also are attributed to inflammation. Oxidative stress, you might have heard words like this. The epithelial lining on the inner part of blood vessels, okay, that's what starts damaging those blood vessels. That's when plaque occurs. So if you decrease free radicals from developing, your body's going to be healthier. And you give it better quality fuel, antioxidants, now you're really on the game. So what produces free radicals? This reaction does to a certain degree. You need a certain amount of free radicals, but a small amount. Enough that are controlled by the antioxidants. The benefits of autophagy is they clean out free radicals. That's why it increases longevity, because you have less damaged cells and tissues. That's what increases metabolism, metabolic health, brain function, cancer suppression, cardiovascular health. All body's functions are benefiting from antioxidants and the decrease of free radicals due to systems like autophagy. See, that's how important a healthy diet is. Some of the other ways in which free radicals increase is through what we eat. So if we're eating fatty foods, processed foods, sugar foods, especially high fructose corn syrup, additives, coloring agents, all these things that are not natural, that increases the proliferation of free radicals. So if your diet is a typical American diet where we eat 17 teaspoons of sugar a day, 60% of the average American diet is processed foods. Kids, 67% of the calories they eat are ultra-processed foods. Ultra-processed foods aren't even food. They're made in a lab. A jelly bean is not a food, right? But a lot of the food we eat are not foods. 42% of the diet consists of refined carbohydrates, and 40% of the meals of the average American for dinner and lunch are fast foods. All of these things increase free radicals, but they also do something else, because free radical cells decrease the size of mitochondria. They cause damage to the mitochondria. They cause them to not function properly. Now, if your diet consists of foods like this, how well is your mitochondria, your cells, getting fuel? Not very effectively. And this is why your diet is so important. High fructose corn syrup is one of the worst substances that we can put in foods. 40 to 50 grams of high fructose corn syrup is eaten every day by the average American. 40% of the sweeteners in the foods that we eat is high fructose corn syrup. It's responsible for things like high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, leaky gut syndrome. It's devastating for your body. It's not a natural compound. Your body doesn't know what to do with it. So it automatically disrupts and causes problems within our body. This is something that really should be cut out entirely. Vegetable oils are another one. Vegetable oils wreak havoc on your body. They wreak havoc on your mitochondria. So your metabolism, your metabolic health is directly influenced by vegetable oils. The reason why they're not healthy is because of the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids. We need both. Just like we should have a certain amount of free radicals, we should have a certain amount of omega-6 fatty acids. In a ratio that is like 2, 3, maybe 4 to 1 omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids. Then they're kept in check. Processed foods, fatty foods, high fructose corn syrup, those ratios are somewhere around 15 to 20 to 1. Corn-fed animals, right? Not grass-fed, but refined grain-fed animals, those ratios are so high, you have such an accumulation of omega-6 fatty acids. This produces dysfunction and dis-ease within the body, causes metabolic imbalance. In your charts, in your packet, you have this. You can see the percentage of omega-6 compared to omega-3. If you're going to use an oil, coconut oil would be the one that I would recommend. But we don't need to use oil when we cook. We've been taught that. You can use water. We use water and vegetable stock. You can buy vegetable stock or you can make it. Easy way to make it is when you cut the stalk off of broccoli, put it in a Ziploc bag, a gallon Ziploc bag. You cut the ends off carrots, put it in a Ziploc bag. The stem off of cauliflower, put it in a Ziploc bag. Accumulate enough of that, freeze it for a while until you have a gallon full. Then take it out, put it in a pot of water, boil it. Then strain the water out. My wife puts it in quart-sized bags. That's our cooking oil, if you will. That's what she used to cook. So it's fresh. Phytochemicals, nutrients, vitamins, minerals, it's all healthy stuff. And that's what she uses to cook with. You don't need oil. But when you are having oil, something like a coconut oil would be the best, but you don't need it. It's still saturated fat. It's a better form. But use water. Cook at a lower temperature. Use vegetable stock. We've used this before, and this is in your packet. In your packet, there are 3 columns. The green column is on the left, the orange column is in the middle, the red column is on the right. When we talk about carbohydrates, we become carbophobic in the United States. Don't eat carbs. We have diets like paleo diet, keto diet, where nobody wants to eat carbs. Okay? Those diets, a keto diet was designed for severely epileptic patients to go on for about 2 months to stabilize their ketones and then come off of it. It's not designed for a lifetime. We should be eating carbohydrates. But people just say carbohydrates. Well, that's fruits, vegetables. That's Cheerios, cornflakes, donuts. Well, now we have to differentiate carbohydrates. These are the carbohydrates we should be eating, the green ones. This is called the aggregate nutritional density index. It's how densely populated this food is with nutrients. It's in the back of your packet, but when you look at it, it goes from 1 to 1,000. The 1,000 is the most nutritionally dense food. Kale, chard, the greens, spinach. This is what's nutritionally dense. These are the carbohydrates we should be having at every meal. And then we work into the orange ones, a lot of the fruits. Now, just because something isn't nutritionally dense doesn't make it bad. Like an almond is good. Whole grains are good. They have fiber, but they just don't have a lot of nutrients. But for the most part, those red foods aren't providing me with nutrition. The green ones are. The orange ones are. We'll talk about fiber in a minute. I try to have between 20 and 25 different variety of fruits and vegetables every day. That's my average. Some of them I drink, some of them I eat. I make a smoothie with some. I make a smoothie with kale, Swiss chard, spinach, some fruit. But I make sure I have those greens because they're the most nutritionally dense foods. So I want to make sure I have them every day. When I go for a long ride or run, that's my recovery drink. I am pouring nutrients into my body so my body recovers and heals. So the nutritional density of food is very important. Your plate should be filled with these things at every meal. This should be the backbone, the foundation of your diet. Now, we talked about sugar and fructose. People get a little worried when we start talking about that because fructose is in fruit. That's a problem if it's not designed with fiber. Because whoever created fruit created fiber, and they put it together, so when you eat fruit, it's connected to the fiber, most of it goes out. It's not a problem. We hear things like glycemic index. That's a popular word. Most people don't know about glycemic load. Glycemic index is how long it takes a carbohydrate to be converted to glucose. Glycemic load is how long that carbohydrate takes to affect or spike your blood glucose levels. That's what you should be focused on. Because glycemic index is only half of the equation. Take a look at carrots, for example. They have a glycemic index of 37, but a glycemic load of 2. They convert to sugar quickly, but they don't really cause any type of spike in your blood glucose levels. I am constantly talking to folks about fruits and vegetables, and they say, well, you know, my doctor said to lay low on that stuff because of the glycemic index, the sugar. Because your doctor doesn't know how that food affects your blood glucose levels. Would someone say, hey, don't eat beetroot? That can spike your blood glucose levels. Has a glycemic index of 64. Yeah, but it has a glycemic load of 4. It's not going to have any effect on your blood glucose levels. I mean, look at fruit. Fruit has fiber attached to it. So if you're going to eat watermelon, 100 is the highest, so that's 76. But what is the glycemic load? 4. How is that going to affect your blood glucose levels? Very small. You have to understand the biochemistry of food and how it affects your body. See, fructose isn't bad if it's with fruit, vegetables. That's how it's designed. It's when you strip it from the fiber or you make high fructose corn syrup, now that's not healthy. That's not only going to increase your glycemic index, but it's going to spike your glycemic load. That's going to spike your blood glucose level. That's going to cause imbalances in insulin. That eventually causes insulin resistance. Because if insulin is constantly being told, get out there and chaperone, get out there and chaperone, eventually it's going to get tired of hearing it. It's going to stay in the room and not go out. That's when your blood glucose levels go up. So your diet should have fruits and vegetables. Now, if you have sensitivity, if you have borderline diabetes, you have to be smart about it, right? You have to monitor and watch. What causes spikes? How long does it spike? But these shouldn't cause you any problem. We're designed to eat them. But you have to understand how they affect your body. They also supply you with nutritional density. I've used this picture or ones like it before. It's 150 calories of pineapples and berries and 150 calories of jelly beans. They're the same amount of calories. But when you eat that bowl of fruit, you're going to stay satisfied for a lot longer. It has water, it has fiber. You're not going to be as hungry as quick as if you eat 14 jelly beans. Like you can have another 14 jelly beans right after that. So what you're doing is you're increasing calories that are going to turn to fat because there's nothing to do with a jelly bean that's going to help you. But the fruit, that's going to provide you with ATP, with fuel. And you're not going to need to eat as much of it. I always give the example, you eat one apple, maybe two, but you can eat a box of cookies. They're designed that way. See, that's why the bags say 30% more, 20% more. They want you to eat them. You think you're getting a deal. So if you eat them, you don't feel bad. But your body's not designed to eat it. It doesn't regulate satiation within your body. This is what it actually looks like. You eat 500 calories of fruits and vegetables. Look how full your stomach is. It fills you up. Now you're not going to want to eat as much. You're good. But look how much 500 calories of oil is. Right? You can keep eating it and eating it. Cheese. Cheese affects the same centers of your brain as heroin does. That's why it's so addictive. They design it that way. Why do you think everywhere you go they ask you, you want cheese on your salad? You want cheese on this dish? You want cheese on your potato? You want cheese on this? Everywhere you go they ask you if you want cheese. Cheese is just saturated fat. There's no benefit from eating cheese at all except for getting sick. No benefit. So this kind of puts in perspective. When you eat food that provides you with nutrition, it fills you up, it satisfies you. Right? This is where your diet should be coming from. Fruits and vegetables provide micronutrients, vitamins and minerals, phytochemicals. These are nutrients you only get from fruits and vegetables. You can't get them anywhere else. They provide you with antioxidants. They provide you with ways to defend against heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, cancers, things like that. Food is a medicine. Let food be thy medicine, Hippocrates. Right? That's what food is designed to do. Heal you. Sustain life. Fiber is also found in these foods. Men above 50 should be eating 30 grams of fiber a day. Ladies, 21 grams. I just calculated the other day just to see. I eat about 40 grams of fiber with my breakfast. Right? Just because I'm eating fruits, vegetables, seeds, and nuts, whole grains. That's one meal. I'm probably up around over 100 grams of fiber a day. Why is fiber so important? You ever hear of your gut microbiome? Your gut, 85% of your immune system is in your gut. Your gut consists of bacteria, healthy bacteria. Do you know what bacteria feed on? You know what they grow on? Fiber. Fiber. Fiber is what feeds them. Produces short-chain fatty acids. This is what fiber needs to grow. So if all you eat are apples, you're going to produce bacteria that can break down an apple. You ever hear people say, well, I try eating beans, but it just doesn't work, doesn't go well. That's because people aren't used to eating beans. So you don't have that bacteria. You start eating beans a little bit at a time. Now you start growing that bacteria. Now you can eat more beans. That's why it's good to eat a variety of fruits and vegetables. As this mentioned, all different colors. Because all the different colors provide you with all different nutrients. And your gut benefits from that. Your gut is where your immune system. You ever hear people say, oh, my gut tells me? That's where your second brain is, your gut. That's how important your gut is. You feed it fiber, you're fueling your body. You're fueling your gut microbiome. Fiber decreases insulin resistance, lowers blood sugar, cholesterol, blood pressure, improves gut microbiome. There's all these benefits of fiber. Most people don't eat much fiber at all because we eat refined carbohydrates. A refined carbohydrate is not going to provide you with fiber. This is the rule with fiber. 5 total carbohydrates to 1 fiber. What do you mean? This is what I mean by that. You look at the label. Total carbohydrates. For every 5 grams of total carbohydrate, you should have 1 gram of fiber. So this is a good ratio. If you see 10 total carbohydrates and 0 fiber, that's not a good ratio. Translate that to fat. You want the fiber. Now, the best place to get fiber is in the food that it comes with, not added to. But if you're eating, cans, look for this. This is very important. These are fiber-rich foods. They're in your packet. These are just examples of fiber-rich foods. So when you're eating the average American diet, about 60% is processed foods. They estimate about 8% of fruits and vegetables. That's how little fiber people get. And we wonder why our gut, our immune systems are so unhealthy. Look at, sorry, the example, but COVID, right? The people who were healthier weren't affected by COVID like people who had, what, multi-conditions, right? Their gut is a big part of that health, your defense. This is why whole grains, whole sprouted breads, whole grain, whole wheat breads are better. This is why refined carbohydrates are not healthy. The bran is the fiber. The endosperm is the starch. The germ are where the nutrients are basically kept. When they refine a grain, they strip away the bran, the fiber, they take out the germ, what's left is the starch. Right? That causes problems, increased starch, increased fats, that causes problems with how the mitochondria works. So what you're doing is you're putting stress on the mitochondria. The energy powerhouse of your body is not able to produce the energy that it should with foods like that. So if you're going to have bread, Ezekiel bread, sprouted grains, whole wheat, I would recommend organic in this sense. But those are the foods you want to eat with that, because those foods are also going to stimulate leptin and ghrelin. What are they? Leptin and ghrelin are hormones. Leptin is found in fat cells. So when you have enough fat cells in your body, leptin is going to tell your brain, stop, we're done. We don't need any more. That's why you can only eat 1, maybe 2 apples. Just in case leptin is falling asleep, ghrelin stimulates, it's a feedback loop, like a balance and check system. Ghrelin is in your stomach. If your stomach is full, your body says, we're good. So when you have a full stomach of fruits and vegetables, healthy grains, seeds, nuts, that's going to stimulate ghrelin. And ghrelin is going to tell your brain, stop eating. But if you have a stomach full of oil, like we saw, it's not full, is it? So you can keep eating. The foods that stimulate leptin and ghrelin are fruits, vegetables, seeds, nuts, and whole grains. That's it. Nothing else does. Not to the extent that they do. Other foods do a little bit, but your refined processed foods, your ultra-processed foods, your fructose, high fructose corn, none of those do. That's why you can eat a box of cookies, a bag of chips, because it does not tell your brain to stop eating. But the other foods that we're designed to eat do. And that's why you can't overeat a healthy diet. So when you're looking at what foods should I eat, the majority of your plate should be those foods. And then if you want to add other things to that, great. The great thing is there's so many opportunities to put whole grains into your diet. Now they have whole wheat pasta, pea pasta, lentil pasta, bean pasta. Right? So you don't have to give up those foods, you just have to make a better choice. So how do we put together a healthy diet? Well, one way to do it is by planning. Plan ahead. My wife sits down on a Sunday and plans the food for the week out there. Not that week, but the next week. So she says, all right, these are the recipes we're going to make for dinner. So she'll look at the recipes and she says, okay, these are the ingredients we don't have. Let's put these on the shopping list. So now I have a shopping list and we're prepared for that week. So every day we have a menu, say, okay, this is what we're eating. Now for me, it's easy because I take the leftovers from dinner for lunch, and I have my breakfast already set. So it makes it very simple. Yeah, but I cook for one. Okay, look at a recipe, divide it by 6 if it feeds 6, and now you have 1. Or if you divide it by 3, you have 2, you have a leftover, you have lunch now. Right? It's not that difficult. I gave you a list of cookbooks in the packet there. All you need to do, those cookbooks, I gave you those cookbooks for a reason, because they're plant-based. So you're going to get all your plants, your vegetables, your fruit. Then you just, if you want to add a meat to it, you add a meat to it. But that can be the foundation. But if you plan ahead of time, it makes eating healthy so much easier, because you're not always hungry and looking through the pantry and saying, what am I going to have? Then you start to prep. So on Sunday, what I do is I take about 30 minutes and I make my shakes for the whole week. I make a green shake. I make a green shake, I put it in a blender bottle, so I make 5 of them for the entire week in about 30 minutes or so. I take about, maybe at the same time, maybe later in the day, another 30, 40 minutes to make I have cashew yogurt and seeds and a fruit, and I make that. I make 5 of them. Put them in containers, I'm done for the week. So it takes me about an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes in total to make all my breakfasts and shakes. My lunches are easy, because what I do on Sunday is I cut up all these different vegetables, all colors, all different varieties, put them in a container. So my lunch, this is leftover, I put in a container, I grab some vegetables, put in that. And that's my lunch. That's how long it takes to make my lunch. And then I make a green salad every day. I have a container of arugula and spinach, container or thing of lettuce, and that's it, covered up, ready to go. So if you prep, if you plan, it makes it easy. And that's how long it takes me on Sunday. About an hour, a little over an hour. But it makes my whole week so easy, because all I do is open the refrigerator, I grab a container, grab a bottle, and I go. My wife doesn't like me at the house for very long, so I have to get out pretty early in the morning. But it makes it easier if you plan and prep. Then you don't have to cheat. Then you don't have to, I'm starving. But even if you cook for 1 or 2, so cook for 2, look at the recipes, just divide it. It's not that difficult. And then you have some leftovers. If you don't want a leftover, divide 6 by 6. Then whatever it is, but you get 1 meal, right? So it's easier to do that. One of the cookbooks, one or a couple of them, have 8 ingredients or less. That's pretty easy. I think that's what, a 30-minute cookbook or something like that, right? So it doesn't even have to take long. Simple things, bean burrito. Get a thing, a tortilla thing or whatever it is, put the beans on there, a little avocado, cut up some vegetables, maybe some hummus, sweet potato, wrap it up. That's a great meal. It doesn't have to take long. You just have to plan and prep. In your packet, there's a list. Clean 15, the dirty dozen. This is an abbreviated list. It comes from the Environmental Working Group, EWG. It's in your packet. They have a very comprehensive list. People ask me all the time, should I buy organic? Should I not buy organic? I don't know where to spend the money. This is a great resource to tell you, hey, this is, if you're going to put your money in organic foods, these are the foods that you want to buy organic. Like your berries and things like that, you're going to eat the outside of it. This is Clean 15 and Dirty Dozen means how much pesticides and herbicides are on these foods, right? The clean ones don't have as much. The dirty ones do. So this is something to be aware of, because again, this can really wreak havoc on your metabolic health. Toxins. Now, if you're eating meat and things like that, you want to buy 100% grass-fed meat, organic, because the animals are inundated with antibiotics and steroids, and they're fed diets that are not congruent with what they're designed to eat. So if refined grains are not healthy for you, you don't want to need an animal that ate a refined grain, and that's what they're fed a lot of times. Well, all the time, unless they're 100% grass-fed. So a pound of grass-fed beef compared to conventional beef, it's like $1 difference. It's not that much difference. And you can find this at Kroger, at Publix, at Whole Foods, online. I'm guessing Costco, BJ's. I know you can find organic vegetables and things there, fruits. It's readily available now. That's when I would put my money into those products. Because the chemicals that are in there, they are responsible in great part for producing metabolic dysfunction. So that's the time when you want to spend the money on that. And it really isn't that much more. I put an overview in your packet to kind of walk you through what we talked about tonight. Creating a healthy diet, you first look at, how do I plan my meals? Let me plan what we're going to have. Look at what we need, write down what we need. Now you have your shopping list. You don't have to think when you're at the store. You come home and you say, okay, now I'm going to prep for my week. I'll cut things up. I'll make things, put them in containers, put them away. Now your week is a lot easier to navigate through. When we go on vacation, it's so simple. You know, we went to my family's house for Christmas. Tam and I, we took our breakfast, we took some lunches. Like, I already had everything planned. I remember we were going on a college visit a couple years ago with my daughter and my son. I took them down South Carolina. On the way home, I stopped at a friend's in North Carolina, and we stopped there in the morning. He's like, "Oh, can I get breakfast?" I have my thermos there, my cooler. I said, "No, I'm good." And then we made a joke about it because they've known me for 20 years. But that's how easy it is for me. I didn't have to do anything with the trip because I already made it the week before. Instead of making 5, I make 7. And it's so simple. So when we go away, like, we're set. We'll go out to eat for dinner, maybe lunch, but we take food with us and it's already made. My shake's made, my breakfast, it's done. So when you prep for your week, it makes it easier. You don't have to sit there and say, what am I going to have? What do I want to eat? Right? It's easier. So figuring out what you're going to have that week, preparing for that week, prepping for that week, then look at, when am I going to eat? Well, your body already tells you that. Earlier in the day, earlier in the afternoon, my bigger meals. You don't want to skip a meal. Make sure you're feeding your body, fueling your body enough. So I would recommend, look at your calories. Do it for a week. Think of it as a game. You know, don't think of it as, oh, I got to do this. I mean, you don't have to do it. But how do you know if you're feeding and fueling your body that's 70%? If you're getting it what it needs. Why am I tired? Why does my hair fall out? Why do I have this? Why do I have that? That's because your body doesn't have the energy to take care of itself. That's why those things happen. And then look at what you're eating. The quality of fuel you're putting in your body. If you call food fuel, you will look at it differently. I look at how I prepare and how I repair and how I fuel my body when I exercise. That's how I look at food. That started 30 years ago, 30-some years ago when I was in chiropractic school. We worked on cadavers and I got to see the inside. That's what started me on this journey. And now I look at people and I say, how have they fueled their body? How has that person fueled their body? When I run a triathlon or the half marathon, right? And I see a 70-year-old person that beat me. I'm like, oh. Should have seen him trip them or something. But I'm saying that person's doing something right. Because there's a lot of other 70-year-olds that aren't even in this race. Well, you're in a race, whether you know it or not, a marathon. That's your life. I know this, we went through, it took me about 3 months to put this together. And I'm giving you this in an hour, and it's like, wow, there's a lot of stuff being thrown at me here. I'm a little overwhelmed. That's why I gave you the overview. Just chunk it down into little things. Make a plan or make an excuse. Everybody has a plan January 1st. But ask them if they're still in that plan March and April 1st. Well, things got hectic. Well, right? You can make a plan. I had an excuse for not running in the winter because it's cold and it's dark out in the morning. So my wife, she's really smart. She said, oh, I have this light. You can wear it to run. Okay. Now I don't have an excuse. So now at 6 in the morning, I run at 19 degrees. I'm lit up like a circus character, so the cars can see me, but now I don't have an excuse anymore. Now if I don't do it, shame on me.
Is she sleeping in while you're running?
No, she's already up and at work at 6. She goes to the gym at 4:30, so she starts at 6. She's the most dedicated, structured person I know. She competed in the Mr. America bodybuilding and fitness pageant last year. And she was the oldest person on the team and did awesome. This year, she's not doing the fitness pageant and the fitness thing anymore. She's powerlifting.
Wow.
I'm going to spill the beans. 58 years old, 2 knee replacements, shoulder surgery. She doesn't have an excuse. Well, she has an excuse, she doesn't use it. She inspires me. So if I don't get up at 6 in the morning, shame on me. My goal, our goal for doing these kinds of things is to prove to ourselves and to other people. She was on a team that was sponsored nationally. The people came from all over the world. But she was on a team. She's the oldest person competing with 20 and 30-year-olds. We do what we do because we want to prove that age is irrelevant. Look, if I can do this at 58, I'm younger than she is by a year, so 57, then why can't somebody else? When I look at the numbers and see where my standings were, I'm not trying to beat people, but I do say this. I want to be competitive in what I do with 20 and 30 and 40-year-olds because I want to prove that it doesn't matter how old you are. And I'm competing better now than I was at 42 with those age brackets. I don't look at my standings with my age group because there's all these old people. I'm looking at how well did I do with the 20 and 30-year-olds, right? Because age is irrelevant. Jack LaLanne, I mean, he was a motivator. He was a chiropractor and a health nut. That's what they called him. But look at what he did, right? So make a plan and just stick to it. See what happens. What's the worst that can happen? You get healthier. You get more energy. You sleep better. You're clearer, right? But if you don't do it, where are you going to be?
Same place you are now.
Same place you are now. Actually, you're worse because cumulatively your body accumulates damaged cells and tissues at a higher rate than it does get rid of them. So I know this is a lot of stuff, and I know it can be overwhelming. One thing that I encourage you, though, is look at your calories. When I review the diets of people, what I find, especially the women, they don't eat enough. They don't eat enough. And you know what happens when you don't eat enough? You don't fuel your body, but your body also says, hey, we're in starvation. We're going to hold on to anything that can produce energy, which is fat. And most women say, well, this year, this is what my goal is, right? Your body can't lose it if you don't provide it enough to sustain itself. It's going to hold on to it. When I explain to people, you have to eat more. Eat more? I don't want to gain. No, you won't. You'll lose weight. You'll reach your goal because your body says we don't have to hold on to this anymore because we're constantly getting more. So if you're constantly filling the tank, you don't have to hold on to what's there. If you want to review your diet, let me know. Just let me know when you come in. I have you email it to me so I can look at it. And we set aside some time and I review it with you. I'm happy to do that. Because, it's very confusing, can be overwhelming. And people join this diet, this company, buy this stuff. You don't need to buy stuff, just buy good food. You don't have to spend money on diets and programs and all that stuff. Because most times, their goal is to have you lose weight. They're not talking about getting healthy. They're not talking about, more about this than probably, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but most doctors, they take one nutrition class. I had one nutrition class. My stepdaughter has one nutrition class, fourth year of medical school. They don't know this stuff because they don't teach it, right? Be informed, be the CEO of your healthcare team. You make the decisions. And if you need help, let me know. I might not have all the answers, but we can get you in touch with someone maybe that we need to call in and be part of your team. But I'm happy to help you. So I appreciate your time. I thank you for being here. I know I went over. I keep going on. Thank you. And be well.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
I guess I will start with finding a date for this.
Yeah, if anybody wants to,